hear you.
Perfect. I had trouble with the mic yesterday, so that's why I wanted to know. Welcome to the show, bro. Thank you for coming.
Hi.
Everyone, he's not AI.
He's real.
He is real. How are you,
Real,
bro?
and as you obviously see, I'm the one who's actually not dying
Yes.
because I don't die. With why I don't die, I'm always making this joke when I see some threads of Brian Johnson. I always say don't die because dying, you know the word?
What do
It,
you
it's
mean?
the- it's the word for coloring your hair.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Okay. Yeah. I think that's one of like the first topics I want to talk about. I mean, unrelated to the joke, but you're 58 years old. You're an incredible example of what to be at 58 years old, to say the least. So,
1 second, a
of
little bit
course.
louder.
Can you hear
How's
me?
my audio? Because I'm not prepared. I don't have
That's
anything.
fine. Yeah,
Okay.
your audio is perfect. I can see you very well. The background's really nice. The camera's really good. Yeah, everything's perfect, bro.
Okay, back to your point. Um,
Right.
are we already in the podcast or you want
Yes,
to talk?
it's already recording.
Okay.
So I guess like how did you get started? How are you here at 58 years old doing what you do?
It was a slow evolution, I would say. So I didn't care about my body until I was 47.
Wow.
So essentially 11 years ago. And then I was really, I mean, you saw the images. I was 147 kg. That's a lot. That's more than 300
Wow.
pounds at
Yeah.
body height of, I think it's 5'9" in US.
Mhm.
It's 180 centimeters in
Mhm.
European. And I never cared actually, but I had, my son was, yeah, a little boy back then, and we were on vacation, and he filmed me in the car, not thinking anything bad, just goofing around with his GoPro. And while I was viewing this video material, for the first time, I was full blown aware, man, what did you do to yourself? Because,
Wow.
when you develop, when you get either excessively overweight, or you see this also in people who are starving themselves to death, you don't see your real image in the mirror. It's a little bit like this effect you might know when you hear the first time your own voice as a
Right.
recording or something like that, and you feel
Right.
like it
Yeah.
is your voice. This is happening in a reverse mode, essentially, when you are masking out some excessive, body abnormality. I
Mhm.
consider it an abnormality. I think we are past the woke age now, so you can
Mhm.
essentially call excessive overweight
You can
what
say
it
whatever
is.
you want. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't want your podcast to be somehow censored or something like that.
No worries at all. I've had very powerful guests with very powerful opinions so far, so
Okay,
I'm not
great.
I'm, I'm
Hey,
not scared of that.
good to know. Good to know.
Yeah.
So essentially, then I saw these images, and it wasn't about me. I never really cared. I mean, I was a smoker back then. I did all kinds of crazy things, but I had my little son, and he was living with me. And thought to myself, if you continue like that, you could drop dead in 5 years or in 10
Wow.
years or so. You wouldn't even see it coming, and you would leave your son alone on this planet. And really, I started crying in that moment.
Wow.
I realized all the weight, and then I knew, okay, I have to change something. And immediately in that vacation, essentially, I started walking.
Mhm.
And with that weight, it wasn't that easy. So, and every day a little bit more. We came back to the place where we lived, and I continued every day 5 minutes longer, 10 minutes longer. So this was essentially the beginning. And yeah, it took me a while. Then I started trying different diet approaches, started trying to starve myself. This went on for a while. And then at one point, I discovered low carb, but not tough low carb or keto or something like that. I thought myself, so that was the time when I started actually thinking, reading. That was around, yeah, perhaps 1 year later or something after this epiphany moment, 1 year later. And then I started to actually reading studies about physiology, scientific books, and I started to understand things and I started
Okay.
to apply them on myself. And I started with something that I called smart carb back then. So I wasn't really low carb. I selected carbs with a specific formula that I developed depending on the fiber that they contain. So essentially,
Okay.
the starches, the net grams of carbohydrates, and also what is the portion of the fiber. But let's not go too much into this detail. So this was essentially the first start where I then, I combined, I did that for a while and weight dropped.
Mhm.
And then it started stalling a little bit at, I don't know, perhaps 125 kg or something like that.
Whoa.
And
Wow.
then, it took really a while. So I definitely knew from the beginning
Mhm.
because I did that. I did that as a teenager. I did that as a young adult. I did that. I had in my life 4 or 5 times where probably more often, where I actually tried to diet somehow. And so my weight development looked essentially like a stock chart that always goes up and never comes down. So you always have these little dips, these diet dips, but then you establish a new high,
Right.
a stock trader would say. And so this peak was at 147 kg. Yeah, and then it took me a while because I knew, okay, if I would force it down, it would again come back. I would again have this yo-yo effect. So I said to myself, I have to take my time because this time I wanted to be the last time that I'm trying to lose weight. And
Mhm.
I meant it, and I wanted to do anything in my possibilities or capabilities to achieve that goal. And it worked out. But then the first stalling came, and then I learned about intermittent fasting back then.
Mhm.
Today, you call it time restricted eating because it's not really a fasting. You can eat isocaloric on that protocol. So then it's essentially not really a fast.
Okay.
Um, and this then gave me another push. But again, it brought me down to 115 kg or something like that. And then the stall was a little bit more serious. So I did all that. I ate less calories. I was intermittent fasting. And when I looked in the mirror, because meanwhile I had become pretty mirror aware and self image aware,
Mhm.
I just didn't see my abs. I was still looking chubby and everything was, it was not satisfying. And
Okay.
then I actually started with the most important thing that I actually did, something that, for example, the peat community is totally underestimating, never talking about resistance training. I started in small steps. I started at home. I never saw a gym, so I was always body weight training.
Okay.
And I started with stuff that I could do. I started developing some circuit formats that I still use until today. I refined them. They are very, very effective. I want to talk about that also in one of the spaces that I will make. Um, and this then helped me to get into the next phase. And then it was from there, it was essentially more patience, then adding mountain biking. I bought a mountain bike and everything increased. So my physical activity increased and the body felt lighter. I could do real push ups, real
Mhm.
chin ups, and all that. So I was really pretty fine. Then so I came in the range of 100 kg. I was still not very lean. So, but I started to see results. Yeah. And then it took me another half year or so because I never was really hungry. So my caloric deficit was always very, very moderate because I didn't want this huge drop. I didn't want this sudden weight loss because you can't fool your body. So there is adaptive thermogenesis. So it will adapt to that. It has a good memory. It has a weight that it thinks it thrives on, that it
Mm.
wants to keep. So you lose your weight, and if you don't do it with a long-term strategy, it will come to haunt you. This is essentially the biggest loser effect.
Could you like explain that a little bit more? How that works?
So the faster you drop your weight, and the harder you push your body to lose weight, to drop the weight, you are manipulating essentially hunger hormones. You are
Right.
manipulating your leptin. You're manipulating all kinds of things, and your body then, when you stop, I mean, you can do it to a specific point. You can
Mhm.
lose a lot of weight, but it's like accumulating hunger. in the background, in your mind,
Uh,
in your body itself, essentially. And I mean, every you don't look like you ever had trouble with your body weight. So, but every person who was overweight can tell you a story or two about this effect, losing your weight, and then you start again eating. You think you're eating normal, but you have this adaptive thermogenesis. So essentially, your metabolism is down regulating
mm,
your metabolism because you don't feed it that much. And if you don't do it right, you don't have any, for example, meanwhile, refeeding makes a lot of sense. So having a cyclical approach, not always dieting on a straight line, but
right.
dieting for a while and then refeeding again and then dieting again. So it's a little bit up and down. So kind of like my weight development when I got big, but the other way around, essentially. You're
Mhm.
dropping weight, then you are refeeding again, and then you drop again weight. And you can do this in different formats. So essentially, you can say, okay, I will diet for 3 weeks, and then I will have a week where I will eat isocaloric, so that your body doesn't really forget. I mean, you will always put on some water weight or even a little bit body fat or something like that.
Mhm.
Depends on your macronutrients and how smart you're actually doing the refeeding. But this would really go too much into detail now to talk about these specific formulas you can apply, because it's also different depending on what food combinations you are eating. So essentially, are you more carb oriented? Are you more fat oriented? Are you a low carber? Are you a high carber? So all this has to be essentially, yeah, somehow accommodated for. And so meanwhile, what I would do if I would have to do it again, I would
Mhm.
definitely use a cyclical approach,
Like,
and I
okay.
would also manipulate the macronutrients. So I would not always stay on the same protocol. I would, for example, I mean, to be honest, to get this to talk about the elephant in the room, because we started this conversation and the channel on X we started so around all themes Ray Peat, and I love Ray Peat, and myself I am a Peter regarding my nutrition since 5 years or so. I started 2020. By the way, that was also the year that I actually had my last cold. So I was never sick again since
Wow.
that day, since 5 years. No colds, no COVID or anything else. So I'm working out every day. I'm working out, not always a hard workout, but I'm every day out for either a walk,
Yeah. Yeah.
a slow jog or something, or a sprint session. I'm always outside, also in winter. So I don't catch any colds anymore. But I remember my last cold was essentially 2 months into the change into peat. I came from intermittent fasting back then, and it was very unusual for me to start
Wow.
eating in the morning again. And I kind of had to force myself to do that because I was not one of these low carbers and carnivores and keto people who developed problems on their protocol. So I started peating out of interest, and because I loved listening to Ray, to Jay, to Danny, to Georgie, to all these guys. I really essentially I consumed every podcast that I could get, and it was really very convincing. And I started to understand it, and I really loved all the philosophy behind that. And
Mhm.
that's why I wanted to try it. I didn't have problems. That's also something that I want to make clear also in the next time in my channel. Not everyone has these problems they are always talking about. So it's kind of everybody thinks, okay, if you intermittent fast or if you eat low carb for a while, you will end up getting trouble. It's not always like that. It also depends on your personal individual body
Sure.
fat position, for example. It depends on the amount of body fat that you have on your body, how well you are sustaining intermittent fasting. It depends on the macronutrients, on how much protein do you need. To be honest, I did time restricted eating for 4, 5, 6 years. So the
Wow.
format where I ended was essentially 24. I fasted every day for 20 hours, did pretty tough workouts on that,
Wow.
and for endurance sessions on my mountain bike. Sometimes on some days in that time when I was down to my lowest body fat ever, below 10%, for
Wow.
someone who was as big as I was, this was sensational.
Mhm.
Sensational feeling also, but it didn't last long. So I changed that because it didn't feel well. And until
Okay.
today, I still say below 10%, that's not where I want to be all year long. your sleep is getting worse. And it was really this low body fat level. It wasn't the intermittent fasting or something like that. I had back then, I remember my cortisol, I think in the morning time was around 70 or something like that.
Okay.
So early, yeah. So around noon when I took my blood, testosterone was always around 800 or so. So I think intermittent fasting in combination with a resistance, with high intensity resistance training circuits that I did, in combination with sprint training, and I can show you studies about that, you can jazz up your human growth hormone up to 1400%. And this is essentially something where today I would be a little bit more skeptic.
Right.
When you read Ray Peats' articles, he considers HGH as the death hormone, essentially, the hormone of death. So that scared me a little bit when I read this the first time. But I think you have to be cautious when you read these articles. A lot of that is also based on studies that might have been done on people who were supplementing or injecting that stuff, and not your endogenous hormone production. I think there are big differences between endogenous hormone production and exogenous hormone application. So I never had any issues. No bad sleep. So bad sleep started essentially when I was really very low in body fat.
Okay.
That's clear. Everybody knows that essentially. And this is the place where I want to be. I'm not one of these Instagrammers who lives for a six pack to show it around. That's not
and that would be because there's too much cortisol, correct?
I mean, if you are constantly in a hypocaloric state, I mean, your body has to somehow, I don't know how Brian Johnson is doing it, saying that he's sleeping 10 hours a day on a hypocaloric diet. Don't know, perhaps it has something to do with the exogenous hormones that he might be taking. I think I heard sometime.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So, but I also don't want to talk about other protocols. So essentially, I know also a lot of people, and I'm pretty, in my case, I never had issues with. The only time what I tried essentially everything. I tried my own smart carb. I combined everything with time restricted eating. I tried briefly keto and carnivore. I really wanted to make it work, but I'm a very intuitive person and I listen to my body. I learned this during my journey to really listen to my body. And I immediately felt the strongest effect for me on these two protocols was I lost my appetite. And this essentially was to me a signal, okay, I might do that if I would be back at 140 kg and I would want to lose weight, then this might be an approach because it would help me to not being as hungry as you usually are. And with that, achieve more easily a caloric deficit. And this is essentially this deficit, because you don't have a natural hunger anymore. If this deficit is getting too big, then you might start getting in all kinds of troubles and problems, because you have carnivores, I mean, who seem pretty happy. I don't think that it's a long-term thing that I would want to do, but I can imagine that people can thrive on that if they eat enough calories, if they enough fuel, if they have a nice ratio between protein and fat. So these things are really important. You cannot do high protein and say, I will do carnivore or something like that and eat just lean meat or something like that. It will leave you in a devastated state. So you see, that's why it's very difficult to talk about these things in a generalizing manner and say, okay, this is bad, this doesn't work, this will work. It's much more nuanced than that. I mean, age plays a role, the macro nutritional profile, the micronutrients that you're taking. So it's really, it has a lot of.
It's a bigger picture than what people talk about, for sure.
It's definitely much more nuanced than
just calories. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really that's why I'm also always hesitating to go into very specific recommendations. I don't consider myself to be someone who wants to coach people in a singular, because you really need to be close to the people. You need to look at their blood markers. You essentially, and in the end, you still, as long as you are not with them, you cannot guarantee any success, and they will blame you. So essentially, if you have a patient or someone that you're trying to help and you meet him in video sessions, I mean, do you really know? He's telling you, oh, I ate just 1,600 calories. Do you know if he didn't eat 2,200?
Right.
You know what I mean? So you don't have the control over that. So therefore, personal coaching is not my thing. But what I could imagine is really to describe different pathways and different possibilities and some kind of template or a cyclical approach, and how to make this would be essentially my biggest personal mission,
Okay.
would be to make a Ray Peat approach, a nutritional Ray Peat of Ray Peat foods to make them work for weight loss. Because let's be honest, the elephant in the room is how many people are starting a Ray Peat protocol and end up much, much heavier. And this is, I'm not saying this to diss anything. I
For
think it's
sure.
a misinterpretation, a misunderstanding. It has also to do with the fact that specific little details are not always communicated in a way that they are in reality. So
Okay.
don't understand me wrong. Of course, if you are a relatively lean person, yeah, and you start jazzing
Yeah.
up your sugar intake,
Right.
start to eat that without any protein or fat, you are increasing your metabolic rate. But in the end, are you really, how do you know that you are not increasing your need, your non-exercise
I
um,
see.
expenditure? So essentially that you move a lot more, because people who are on a high energy protocol will all tell you they are not sitting around, they are feeling this energy, they want to move around.
They
So
need to move. Yeah.
you are doing this intuitively, and when you are hypocaloric, you're doing the opposite.
Yeah.
But essentially, so these are all factors that you cannot really tell. And also, if you are feeding your body with high energy, are you still eating the same, actually really the same stuff in the evening? Are you ingesting the same calories? And I don't want to be, I'm not one of these psycho guys who thinks the body is a machine and you put 1,284 calories in and you get 1,364 out or something like
Right.
that. This is not how I think. But I think basic physiological understanding should make it clear for you that you cannot ingest excess excess energy and lose a big amount of weight over 3 or 4 months. This doesn't work. It might, yeah, it might repair your hormonal status. It might make you feel better and everything that the people observe. But the body has no reason. It can, how can I simplify this? It's completely two different things. Keeping your weight,
Hmm.
although ingesting a bit more calories than you might would actually need. So your body has the possibility to,
Right.
I don't know, uncouple or rev up your body temperature or make you
Hmm.
move more, so that you actually really don't gain weight, although you increase your calories. And this can be a significant amount, but this doesn't mean that you can increase your calories to an amount that is higher than you're actually significantly higher than you're actually, with everything that you do, expanding, and your body temperature is already warm and everything else. And then your body says, hey, let me just shed another burn on top, another 60 pounds in the next 8 weeks. This won't, it doesn't make any physiological sense to lose weight when when you take more energy in, or more fuel. It's not energy, you have to produce the energy first. It doesn't make sense, and it also doesn't work. Many people live through this every day, so you have to be a little bit more cautious. But there are certainly ways how you could do that, depending on your personal, I don't know, preferred foods that you have in a repeat context. You could do that, and then of course there are also the hormones. But I think we also have to be cautious a little bit. It's something else to coach someone one on one, see his blood values and lab markers and thyroid hormone and everything else, and then really know, okay, there's something off. We
Hmm.
should not conflate that with thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of people on the internet who are complaining, oh, my metabolism is wrecked
Hmm.
and that's why I cannot lose weight or something like
Right.
that. So
Right.
really, I think many people are taking this as an excuse, and it's getting more and more easy for them to take this as an excuse to really don't care about discipline, because you need some form of discipline, you need useful habits, you need essentially be it mini workouts, be it some form of resistance exercise, be it some form of movement. This is the most important factor in any body transformation. When you have to lose weight, this is really important. And I'm not talking about a fitness level that I might have achieved because I was crazy and wanted to explore that. I'm talking about basic fitness. You cannot tell me, no matter if you are a burning Ray Peat fan, you cannot tell me when you are going up the stairs or when you walk uphill for 20 minutes and you're gasping for air that
Right.
you are healthy.
Right.
Uh,
Absolutely agree.
that you are
100%.
not allowed to improve your aerobic fitness by increasing the resistance while walking or by trying to walk a little bit more. Essentially, every form of
Yeah.
aerobic training below this first ventilatory threshold will, of course, be useful for you. And this is
Yeah.
something that in this community is always a side note, but never is really talked about. It's something, and a lot of that goes back to studies that Ray might have cited one or two times in podcasts. He didn't talk that much about that. But if I recall correctly, these were studies. You take some unfit people and you put them in some form of aerobic exercise, something that might be in a heart rate zone of 130 or something like that. But for a completely unfit person, this person should walk first for 3 months or something like that and increase
Right.
the amount of mitochondria that the person has. And with that, step by step, these a heart rate of 130 or 120 would not push you in a zone where you're actually producing lactate.
Right.
That much lactate that your body can't get rid of, that accumulates and then has all these negative effects. Nobody can convince me about having some basic aerobic fitness is a bad
100%.
thing.
100%. Yeah. So I kind of want to touch on a little bit on that, which was like something you mentioned on the call. When was it? Wednesday, which was, I think, a big mission of yours is making Ray Peats' philosophy a little bit more mainstream, right?
Exactly.
Why do you feel that's a calling? First, like that's my first question, and number two, where are we starting on that path?
To break the concepts down a little bit less
Okay.
nerdy would be one step.
Mm-hmm.
To communicate it in an easier to read language would be another step. Simplifying everything
Simplifying.
yes,
Dumbing
simplifying
it down. Okay.
everything,
Yeah.
and also trying to reach more people. Because I mean, if you are doing if I mean, it's great to share knowledge with everyone. This is also what I want to do. But if you are not reaching them, so if someone sees your post or your podcast and doesn't understand it, it's over his head,
Right.
and you don't take him by the hand and explain to him, hey, this is actually why sugar is not that much of a danger for you. Look,
Right.
these are the facts. This is your blood glucose reaction on that. This is your insulin reaction on that. You have to penetrate this subject over and over again until people, because I think no other food group, except perhaps saturated fats a few decades ago, was so demonized
Demonized. Right.
was. And it's
Yeah.
essentially demonized in a way that even the Ray Peat community is always talking like that about white sugar. Hey, let's not talk about white sugar. Let's
Right.
honey and if you listen to Ray, he would tell you, and this is absolutely physiologically correct, it's the same molecules. When the molecules reach your cells,
Sure.
it's glucose. And the
Sure.
fructose goes in your liver, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the
So
honey, okay, when you consume honey, it might be a little bit, yeah, your body might process that a little bit different. But if you look at the scientific data regarding blood glucose and insulin reactions, there's not that much of a difference. So
okay.
there are conditions where you might have problems in your small intestine when you feed all kinds of stuff that you don't want to feed in your gut. and there white sugar might be a problem for you. So I'm not advocating for sugar. I'm just, I have to be careful to not be misunderstood that I'm promoting, hey, just take sugar.
I
I just
understand.
want to say we
Yeah.
have to break up this demonization. Yeah, we have to
Right.
make it clear, no, sugar is not that much different than honey. Yeah.
Right. So that's, I feel like, where this could start is part of making Ray's philosophy more mainstream is to show it or introduce it to the rest of people who already are health conscious, right? So I think that that's like could be the start, which is like explaining, or yeah, making people understand, or just explaining why sugar is something not to be feared, right? I feel like that's the first step, because that's the first personally what I've seen. That's the first thought people have when they hear the name Ray Peat, is just sugar, right?
Yeah.
Or a Coca-Cola. So I feel like it's
Mexican Coca-Cola. I mean,
Mexican Coca-Cola,
and I
exactly.
think also Mexican Coca-Cola from 20 years ago or something like that. I'm
Right.
not even sure if, I mean, you live in Mexico.
Yes.
Do you have sugar in your Coke still, or?
Ironically, no, it's high fructose corn syrup.
That's what
Yeah,
I thought.
it's
And I
rare
remember also Ray saying once that he thinks refined sugar is essentially the cleanest food on earth.
because it's just
Were
sugar.
exactly his words. It's so refined that it's essentially really, it doesn't get cleaner than that.
It's just sugar. Yeah, glucose, pure like fuel,
So
right?
the refinement of it was essentially increasing its quality and its digestibility compared to brown sugar. And I think this is also a position that he had regarding coconut oil, that he would
Hmm.
say he would even might even prefer, because of the taste, but also because of the refinement and the cleanness, that he would also prefer refined coconut oil or not have a
Right.
problem. I mean, Ray was not this guy who was preferring, hey, organic and you need grass fed and this and that. So,
Hmm.
um, but it's okay. I mean, why not? We all know today how they are treating these animals and how they are feeding them. So if you can afford it and if you can buy it, of course you would always prefer
Right.
organic foods.
So
Uh,
how would you tackle this sugar is bad narrative?
I'm already trying
Right.
by showing the data, and it's still
Right.
difficult. I mean, you have guys commenting. I really go into these deep discussions sometimes with them in
Hmm.
one or the other thread, where they're really saying, "Oh, there's no evidence, there's no proof for repeat for Repeat's work. You're just opinionated. You are just heavily biased. Um, there's no scientific merit to that." And then I say, dude, are you really want to discuss with me about the antimicrobial effects of carrot fibers or coconut oil? These are facts.
Okay.
Okay, I didn't post a study. I can do that, and I showed him them. You can find a lot of studies. You don't have to present Ray Peats articles to show the
Sure.
guys, hey,
Sure.
a carrot salad won't kill you, and it has actually the effect that why Ray Peat is essentially recommending this carrot salad. So there is scientific work there, just like with the sugar. I mean, but it's still difficult. You show the people, look, you are eating potatoes, you are eating rice, you think that's better for you, that's digesting slower or something like that. And I
Right.
can show you this is your insulin load, this is your blood glucose load.
Right. Right. Right.
And the
Right.
physiological reason for that is this and that. But it will take a lot of posts and time, and you really have to be stubborn, and you have to promote it in a way where people can't look away. I mean,
Right.
I'm very, I don't know if we should even talk about this here in this podcast, but I am really stunned, surprised, and shocked how some parts of the community are approaching my approach. So essentially, I have a little bit of feeling like they are farmers from 100 years ago yelling at tractors or something like that. You know,
Okay.
so, hey, please leave us in the state that we are, and don't use AI to proofread your text, or don't use AI
Right. Right.
as tool. Dude, we are living in 2025. If you
Yeah.
don't,
That's a topic I want to touch for sure.
yeah,
Yeah. That's a big
yeah, we
one.
can touch it. I mean, I'm obviously, otherwise I could not even do the load. But do you really think that you can have AI do that on its own without even knowing what you're doing and what you actually want to say. I mean, everybody can try, be it creating images using AI or using. I mean, I'm not a native speaker. My English might not be that bad, but I'm not even living in an English speaking country. Yeah.
Right.
So I never talk English.
Yes, the computer crashed out of the blue. Sorry, you were saying you're not a native. You're not in a native country.
Yeah, and I never speak English essentially at home or
For that, you have a tremendous accent, by the way. Like you speak very well English.
yeah, okay. Might be because I grew up with two languages, so
Okay.
I'm essentially Greek
Okay.
and lived for a long time in Germany. So I grew up and learned these two languages, and these two languages are quite opposite. So I learned to think in two languages and talk in two languages. Then later I also learned French,
Wow.
and then later English came like that, and English is essentially now the universal global language. And when
Right.
you write all the time in English or read all the time in English, you somehow learn the language a little bit better. But
Yeah.
still, if I would write, I mean, if I write a text and I can take the time and proofread it myself and make it essentially really something that, yeah, okay, might have no errors or something like that. But to explain my point, I really want to help. Being called a grifter is essentially an insult. It's, I don't know, does it come from envy or somewhere? I mean, I really don't know. And it's not everybody. There are a lot of people. I mean, I'm not even looking at these discussions that are going around in other places of X where I'm not even interested. I'm not even engaging with the people. I will go down my path. And to be honest, to me, this authoritarian approach that some people are showing right at the beginning. So this is wrong. You cannot do that. You are exploding. Ray, I mean, who are you to tell me that?
Right.
Ray Peat was the antithesis to authority. And it's exactly the same way that I think and I thought even before I knew from Ray Peat. And having other people tell you, give you a legitimation, or I mean, who are you to try to legitimize my work? Who are you
Right.
to judge my work? I
Right.
think let the other people speak,
Mm-hmm.
who read the stuff, who engage with the things, and who might learn a thing or two. And I think when you get, I mean, it's to me, I'm not making any money of that. Yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
might be at some point, but
Mm-hmm.
I started accidentally. It was a surprise that it got some traction, and then I was in it essentially, and then you get all these comments, and I'm not someone who can ignore comments, and it just helps me to be faster in answering everything and really trying to help the people. Right now I'm sitting here essentially, and I know I will have probably 20, 30, 40 comments or questions, and I hate to ignore that. I really
Right.
hate that because, and it's to me this is really a problem. So I don't absolutely don't understand how someone could say or even think this is something that Ray might not even have wanted or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I'm not getting this point even remotely.
Mm-hmm.
Why? What could be the problem to show more people who never heard of that there is
Right.
something like a bioenergetic approach, and you don't have to fear sugar, and you just have to dial your nutrients in. There are also many people who don't have these weight issues or this who are early in their life stage, who want to try something new. Why not preventing them from getting sick?
For
Why not
sure.
getting this audience, trying to getting this audience? I mean, we have one or two, or I don't know, I don't even know the scene that well. The only account that I know, essentially a bigger account, I know Thermobolic, who's a nice guy, but I think
Mm-hmm.
he's not that scientific regarding this. Veronica is very successful in what she's doing, and I think she's also getting quite the hate. Um, but what's the problem with bringing the message out to people, telling them, hey, stay away from PUFAs? I mean, what's the problem with that?
Right. For sure.
I
Yeah.
don't
There's
know.
I think there's another topic that you mentioned in the call and you've tweeted about it multiple times, which is like exercise, right? And now, I mean, I guess the question is how can someone exercise intelligently while staying true to Ray Peats' philosophy? You know, what is this like smart exercise that you
The
talk about?
the most important thing is really to not overexert yourself, to stay really you have to differentiate between resistance training that you can still optimize in a way. So if you do classical resistance training, um, it will be a little bit against Ray's philosophy because Ray clearly said just concentric exercises. So if you make a biceps curl, this movement is the concentric movement, and this is the eccentric movement. And when you do the eccentric movement, you are essentially lengthening the muscle fiber
Yeah.
against resistant, and this is breaking the muscle fiber down. This is essentially producing also more lactic acid. So that's why he said, and he's totally right with that. So essentially, to simplify it, the ideal training with resistance would be like if you, from a pro metabolic
Please.
standpoint, would be like Olympic weightlifters train
Okay.
because
Okay.
they essentially have only the concentric move and then they let the weight drop. You can even use, I'm using, for example, for my sprint training, I'm using, sometimes I make blocks like that where I do 3 weeks, everyday deadlifts with a medium weight, but I'm dropping the weight. If you don't drop the weight, you will need 2 or 3 days break to repair the muscles again. If you
Yes.
just a concentric, you can put a lot more training load into that for this explosive movement, and you won't get that sore. So Ray is essentially the only one who ever talked about this, and rightfully so. He's spot on that. But it's also difficult to, probably not even possible in a normal gym to do just concentric training.
Yeah.
Some gyms would not even allow you to drop the weight or try to do it, for example, with chin-ups or some easier variations of that or
Mm-hmm.
push-ups. So it's essentially when you have to carry your own body weight, but there are ways around that you can try to do. So it won't hurt you that much if you do your resistance training. We are talking now about an ideal situation,
Mm-hmm.
but instead of not doing weight training or resistance training because you think the eccentric movement would hurt your metabolism, I would say try to do it. Just don't do it an hour. Yeah, you
But
don't want to become a bodybuilder. Don't do it an hour. Do some smart circuit training. What I can tell you right away is very successful mini workouts, and they can have so many different shapes and forms. Just a simple example: crank out a few push-ups, a few chin-ups, and a few squats.
right.
You are totally untrained. Buy a pair of rings, hang them somewhere down, leave your feet on the ground, and the resistance of the angle of your body defines essentially the resistance and the weight that you are pulling. So you
Right.
can really grow with such an easy tool. You're not
Mm-hmm.
overexerting yourself. You're just training. You're activating your muscles. You
Mm-hmm.
can do your squats. You can hold on to something. You can only squat down to a chair height or something like that. Push-ups, you can do them. Start at the table. Don't do them on your knees. That's not good for your form. It's much better if you can do a real push-up to start at an elevated position, like for example a table. Focus more on form and build from there. It's really a habit. If you get a little bit of physical exercise in your daily routine, just like brushing your teeth, it really has to be in that format. It shouldn't be, oh, I have to go 3 times per week in the gym, and there I have to, you are preparing yourself for a mental fuck up, yeah, for a mind fuck.
100%.
You,
Yeah. So
you won't find the time. You might go there with all your motivation. You might exaggerate. You might hurt yourself. You might be very sore. All this will lead to nowhere. Only a few people really bite through that and stay there. It's much, much smarter to make really baby steps. Start small,
okay.
stay continuous, increase the resistance, increase your training load. So this is the strength part. and then you are getting stronger, and you want to challenge yourself, and then you can start to add some form of metabolic conditioning in your body weight exercises, so that you essentially do them without rest. Change for example, the anterior muscles with the, how are they called, the other
Posterior.
ones,
Posterior.
posterior and anterior, exactly. So essentially you're pumping blood from one big muscle group into the other, and do this without rest. This is very, very effective. So this will also start to train your mitochondria. You will create, in combination, you will create the muscle stimulus. You will create at the same time um, some demand in lactic acid. You will definitely have this effect like you would be sprinting. So you can definitely integrate this in your strength training, and it won't hurt you like it would hurt you if you try to do this for an hour, or like it would hurt you to try to go jogging and jog. I mean, you might not even be fast because you are totally untrained,
Right.
but you're running over your ventilatory threshold. You are producing much more lactate, and you're doing this for 10, 20, 30 minutes, or how long you want to torture yourself. And this is the stuff that it hurts you. So if you want to do aerobic exercise, do it really very, very at a low intensity. Nobody's pushing you. You don't have to push yourself in a zone where you're hurting yourself, where you're losing fun at the physical activity.
Mm-hmm.
Later, when you're getting fitter, you might discover, hey, okay, I really want to challenge myself. I will do for 3 minutes a hardcore strength circuit, and then I will have an oxygen depth, and I will increase the amount of mitochondria that I have, and I will be definitely fitter. But this is something that should not happen in the beginning. This can happen later. To me, one of the worst termini, how do you call it,
Advice.
slogans in this
Okay.
whole realm is essentially no pain, no gain. This is so wrong on so many levels. So everybody thinks, oh, I have to be tough, I have to be hard, and I have to challenge myself. This boot camp mentality. Yeah, you might, if you are tough enough, and if you're willing to risk injury, and if you're willing to harm your metabolism, yeah, you don't know what you're doing long term with this kind of protocols. I know super fit dudes. I mean, I followed a lot of podcasters. I know one guy who's essentially vomiting after every training session. There was one, I forgot his name. There was one very famous guy who did this ultra hardcore, um, high intensity resistance training. We are talking really about very heavy squats,
Mm-hmm.
20, 30 reps. This guy was essentially vomiting after a set.
Right.
And he was kind of a hero in the scene. I think he lived in New York. And you don't even see videos of that guy anymore. It was really quite a while ago that I knew of that guy. And
Okay.
I'm not sure. Nobody can say that. But is it a coincidence that someone like him dies with 48 or something like that of cancer?
Right. Okay.
Creating videos for 10 years, essentially always in this drowning in lactic acid, always. I don't know. I'm just speculating. That's not a legit theory or something like that. But I think it's intriguing if you understand, or if you believe in what Ray was preaching all the time. It would make sense that someone like that, because this guy was essentially in a much worse place than even an average to mid pro endurance runner. I'm not talking about championships where actually people also will start to vomit. I mean, in my eyes, they are crazy. So this competing kind of endurance training is really, it's really deadly. So I'm always, if somebody asks me for advice, I'm always saying endurance training, if at a competition level, if nobody pays you for that, that you're taking lives of your life expectancy, don't do that.
Okay.
It, it just makes you better in being able to torture yourself for longer.
Okay.
That's it. You don't have any, I mean, what's the real life situation where you would have to run away from something for 1 hour? I mean, a wild animal or something like that, it would catch you. So your marathon skills won't help you. Your
Right.
sprint skills might help you to get
Agree.
somewhere. So
Agree.
it's just not physiological. And this evolutionary things, this What hunters did, I mean, they were following their prey essentially, sometimes for days, I assume. Nobody knows this really. Yeah, we are extrapolating, or we are interpreting a lot of stuff into evolutionary things. And I'm not taking any of these evolutionary theories even remotely for serious, because every scientific study that I saw, mummies, for example, from all parts of the world, um, you never found, I mean, even the kings, they were riddled with chronic disease. And the poor people that you find, I don't know, a young Inuit woman that you found somewhere in the ice,
Mm-hmm.
lived 10,000 years ago, had a heart condition.
Mm-hmm.
The mummies were emaciated. They were they had chronic disease. Yeah. So it's not this, oh, back then when we were strolling around in the wild, it was all so perfect and we ate the animals and everything was, we were just eating meat and we were so healthy. Sorry, in my eyes, that's nonsense. I know there's a whole academic field um, interpreting or putting up theories, and I know I will get a lot of hate for that, just for all the other things that I said in this podcast. But I guess I can take it. We are essentially, we have some form of proof, but a lot of these evolutionary theories are just that, theories. And
Right.
if the last few years we discovered one thing as actively thinking, awakening people, not woke people, awakening people, it's that you might have a second look when some authority is trying to teach you something. And I think I'm not saying anything new. This is essentially what Ray Peat lived and breathed all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That you cannot trust authorities, institutions. You,
Mm-hmm.
you cannot do it. So why do you think that the academic material that you're getting about evolutionary studies is right? Because even there you will have um, two directions. One will tell you, oh, we ate meat and the Indians were 9 feet tall and nonsense like that. And the other people will tell you, oh, we developed the ability to digest starch already in our mouths, and we find in the mummies they have plant fibers. And so I say, yeah, you can extrapolate some data, but you cannot generalize it for
Okay.
all the human beings all over the planet. And
Absolutely.
if you look today at tribes, or I don't know, I mean, you won't find that many, but a lot of these traditionally living cultures in many different spots in the world,
Mm-hmm.
they are essentially high carb. They are not necessarily sugar, but they're
High carb.
eating more carbs than I can send you after the podcast a few links to studies. I think I posted them already also in one of my threads in some comments somewhere hidden.
Mm-hmm.
There are studies, I think six, seven, eight traditional tribes, all of them on 70, 60 to 85% carbs.
Wow. Well, it depends on the
Yes.
region too, no?
Yeah, sure. Depends on the region, but which region today would you eat only meat?
Uh, the more north you go.
There's only essentially the only population on this planet that was really forced to eat
Right, because there's no carbs that grow there.
a ketogenic diet were
Right.
essentially the Inuit. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I find it intriguing that this population has developed a gene that is increasing gluconeogenesis and is decreasing ketogenesis.
Mm.
That's crazy, isn't it?
That
So
is pretty
what
interesting.
what sense does this make? So is this perhaps a hint that your body
Needs
wants
it. Yeah.
more glucose?
Yeah.
I mean, when I remember when I was discussing stuff like that a few years ago in some Facebook groups where I met partially also scientists sometimes, or other people who are active in that realm. You always had this very convinced keto people, and the dumbest argument that I heard was, yeah, the whale meat or the whale fat or the whale meat had a very high
No whale fat.
glycogen portion. And I said, yeah, okay, but if the meat already contains more glycogen, why would you want to crank up your ability to produce more glycogen? I mean,
Right.
where's the sense in that?
Agree. That's
I
really
think also
interesting.
Chris Masterjohn made once a very interesting video explaining why he thinks that nature doesn't want us in a perpetual ketogenic state. Generally, I think with everything that I went through in the past 10 years and everything that I learned on 12 years, meanwhile, um, your body thrives on cyclical approaches. And I'm not necessarily talking about all these how do you call it?
Yeah, seasons. Like
Yeah,
seasons is what you're trying
seasons
to
one
say. Yeah?
thing, but also the dependency to light, because this is also not so correct as many people think. So essentially, I know there are studies that are saying you should, when you eat in the first half of the day with the daylight, your blood glucose regulation would be much better. There are studies like that, but we all know that studies are always can always be designed in a way, and
Sure.
usually
But
the
forget studies, it just makes sense.
the participants in these studies don't undergo a longer phase of
Okay.
accommodation to a different state. I can tell you, when I was time restricted eating with perfect blood markers, with perfect fitness, with perfect sleep, but I ate also a shitload of a ton of calories. Um, I was always stuffing myself in the evening.
Okay.
So, I mean, and I can also point you to studies that will show you that the local time setting in your organ, so essentially your body is learning your rhythm. So if you feed it every
Right.
day at the same time you're breaking your fast in the afternoon or in the evening, it will work like clockwork.
Right. But you're just like hacking your body basically.
It's just important that you feed it at the same time.
Sure.
And you can do it. I mean, what I could never do that, eat in the morning. I mean, because what I'm doing right now is essentially drinking coffee, drinking some fresh squeezed orange juice, and drinking the coffee with a bulk of milk. And I might do this one or two times during the day. That's not a heavy meal. So I could
Mm.
work out with that. I can sit and work. I could not eat meat or some fat meat or eggs or something like that and then feel nice going for a walk or outside or something. That's just not my thing. And I also think in nature, if you want to bring back this evolutionary thing, what makes sense? Would you wake up and have a ready meal there for you? I think
No.
I think I went down the rabbit hole once and went through some earlier, because it's a long time ago, through some Polar Explorer diary. And I think I read there that these guys were essentially definitely to be more alert, to be more, to be, yeah, they essentially went on the hunt, fasted. They drank
Of
some
course.
tea or
Of
something
course.
like that.
That does make sense.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it's not that, hey, but we have to really be careful with extrapolating or interpreting data from the past, or even if it's real what they did,
Sure. Sure.
it doesn't have to be the optimum for you
Okay.
as a bunch of cells to thrive and to have the ideal energy. Because I think this is something where people often misunderstand or repeat, the people who don't want to understand him, that they might actually make a point in him. Oh, we never had sugar, we never had this. Ray Peat is not telling you this is how our evolution might have gave us the conditions to live like that. He is saying, I'm understanding the physiology like that, that if I give my cells this stuff, then they will
Right.
thrive, then they will be stronger, then they will help to improve my structure, they will
Right.
help me to be more stress resilient and everything. It's two completely different things. And I
Right.
think all these other keto things coming from a corner. So essentially, what were we doing in the past? On what are we supposed to do? How did we survive? And this, to me, is kind of a nonsensical argument.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
understand that some people thrive on carnivore. Yeah, I mean,
Yes.
I totally understand that. And but they don't know. Will this give me cancer one day?
Sure.
You cannot be sure.
Anyone. Yeah. Absolutely. No one can be sure. So on the same topic, I want to talk about light, which is did
This is something
Ray ever touch on the importance of light? Because I don't see so much emphasis on it.
he definitely talked about that. But I
What
think
did he
it was
touch
not.
on?
You cannot compare it with all the stuff that Jack Cruz, for example, is
Sure. Yeah, it's
now the
too.
whole movement. But he definitely, I mean, I think he recommended even buying some red lights that you would use for your chickens or something like chicken or something
Yeah.
like
But
that.
what about like sunrise and actually getting skin in the game and being an animal of the sun, right?
I think definitely that this is what he would have preferred, and this would also be. I mean, we have to be a little bit cautious about that because meanwhile, this light community, sun, yeah, the people who are worshipping essentially, rightfully, the sun,
Mm-hmm.
they are essentially so a little bit in opposition with Ray Peat, and they kind of have a point because meanwhile you see that people from the Ray Peat community will tell you, yeah, okay, hey, you can take this and that to compensate for things that might happen in your body during wintertime.
Yeah, I think the opposition that exists is that sometimes Ray's teachings are understood as like you're eating a bunch of sugar when there's not enough light available to deplete the deuterium that sugar gives you, or you're just eating sugars year round when there are some seasons where it's less available, so you should be eating less of it, and you should be dealing with the problems that you deal in these other um, seasons. I think those are like the oppositions mainly, and that he maybe. I mean, this is what I wanted to clear up is like what
Yeah,
emphasis did he touch on
there,
there?
my first question would be, okay, you live somewhere, but your genetic predisposition might be from somewhere else. Yeah. So
Yeah,
I have Greek heritage. I live in Central or Northern Europe. So that
right,
is not
right.
the right thing for me. Eating like I was, like my forefathers were genetically structured, or
Yeah.
should I eat like if I move to Norway, for example? Yeah. How can I compare to the people born there, living there for ages? So I think it's not that easy to make this.
Okay,
But
I understand. Yeah.
yeah, but it definitely makes sense. So instinctively, what I'm doing myself, because I'm not, I have to be honest, I'm not a biohacker in that sense.
Sure.
That I'm really hesitant in taking exogenous hormones. I never needed that. Not even I did not even experiment with thyroid. I think many people need it, and Ray was a strong proponent for that, and
Yes.
he was
Yes.
also a doctor, and he knew what he was telling to people.
Mm-hmm.
I would never do this, and I would also don't do it for myself unless I'm not really in a hole
Okay.
where I feel okay. I'm not feeling well. I don't have energy no matter what I eat. But this is simply not happening with me. So I would never try to increase my metabolism or jazz something up or feel stronger or better or try this out and just experiment with
Okay.
hormones. That's not my thing. And I would never recommend it to someone. And I would not start taking hormones to be able to process more sugar during winter. That's just not
Mm-hmm.
what I would do. I would prefer to, hey, why not increase the animal fat intake or eat something yummy like organic potato chips fried in coconut oil or something like
Right.
that? Or I don't know. I mean, you have many possibilities. So I'm doing this instinctively during wintertime. I will have a higher fat intake. And during summer, I will also have definitely a higher carb intake,
Sure.
a higher sugar intake, because I'm really eating just sugar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think everybody, I don't know if I'm listening closely to my body. I'm seeing the changes. I'm
Yes.
measuring body fat and stuff like that. I know that during winter, even if you don't change the amount of calories, you will add weight. And when spring starts, you will again get automatically leaner without even trying to lean down. So
Absolutely.
there is definitely something into this, and you don't have to enhance it additionally by continuing eating 600 grams of sugar during winter without being physically active. I would
Yes.
not do that.
No, I agree. Um, there's a big topic that we kind of like slightly touched on in the first part of the episode, and we did get into it in our call, which was artificial intelligence. Period. Right. So I guess the question is, how do you think with the speed, with the speed on how things are growing right now, specifically with artificial intelligence and artificial general intelligence, how do you think this can all tie to bioenergy in the human being?
We might be lucky that not AGI but ASI will won't take longer than the end of the decade, I think. Um, it might be the case, but I don't want to promise this to anyone because I'm not involved in the development of ASI, the artificial superintelligence, which essentially, I mean, it will invent, I don't know, new proteins, it will invent new medications, it might invent the pill that you can take to simulate exercise or whatever. So I think
Right.
this future will be, I don't know, will be crazy. The next
Absolutely.
10 to 15 years will be crazy. And
And
we are
even
already
faster.
right now,
Yeah.
the smartest frontier model that is publicly available has an IQ of 134, something like that, or 137. Um, it's O1 Pro from OpenAI. That's currently the one that is publicly available, that you have a lot, pay to some money. Um, And the next one that they already tested, the O3 it's called, is already around 157 in
Yeah,
tests.
that's crazy.
And it's solving some mathematical equations that were unthinkable until now.
Wow.
But this is still not AGI and ASI. But you have to understand, we are entering now essentially the phase where we humans, all the material that we produced as humans in our complete history, all the data that we produced isn't enough anymore for these algorithms to get smarter. So
Right.
essentially, they will have to
Feed
design
themselves. Right.
their own data,
Right.
their
Right. Right.
own
Right.
training data to reach these new yeah, these new real realms of intelligence. And I'm pretty sure also they will definitely, when they start communicating, when you have, I mean, you already have these agents and you want to make them communicate to each other, they definitely will. So the next, I don't know, third generation perhaps, talking about GPT 6 or so, or 7, and what is above that, yeah,
Who knows? That's the singularity, right?
they will definitely also develop a much more efficient language that we humans probably won't even understand. And we don't
It's
have
so
a grip
wild.
on that.
Right.
Society doesn't have a control over that. Governments don't have control over that. So this is really the only scary thing in this development is essentially humanity is essentially right now. I mean, you have all these cheerleaders right now, big Brotec guys who are essentially saying, "Oh, everything will be great, and we will live until infinity, and we will have all these robots that will heal every one of us." Dude, are you really thinking that that suddenly the most powerful technological invention that can control humanity will be shared with you?
Right.
No. Why? Why
What do
would?
you feel is gonna happen?
Sorry.
What do you feel is gonna happen?
I don't know. I mean, there are always bad, evil, and good forces.
Like, what do you think about, you know,
There will be gatekeeping going on. I mean, even if it would not be the corporations who are owning these technologies, the governments who might still try to control these corporations, or who is controlling whom? I mean, are we entering a phase? Are we not already in a phase where perhaps not singular corporations, but the same companies that own all the corporations are essentially also guiding at least parts of the? I mean, we have all these structures. Now they're
right,
telling us, okay, everything will change now at 20th in 3 days. We are entering a new age, but I don't know. I'm hesitant in believing things like that because money and power always corrupts
right, right.
people,
I think I am too. Yeah, I definitely understand that point.
and it's a little bit sad. And you don't, because you are really, imagine what these things could do for humanity. It could liberate humanity. ASI definitely could liberate humanity. It could.
Liberate in what? Like, what do you mean when you say that?
With liberate, I mean you would not need even money. This thing would essentially construct, create, build automatic production robots. It would
Right.
get all the resources. It could feed everyone.
And at
Once
that point,
it
you don't
does,
even need
10 years.
humanity.
Sorry?
At that point, you don't even need humanity. I mean, after that point, you don't even need humanity.
Yeah, but what would be the more? Yeah, of course.
Right. That's what's like crazy.
As long as I mean, theoretically, and intelligence, artificial intelligence, that is so smart, you would not even. It could even protect itself against being shut down. It could. If now this
Right.
what we are witnessing right now at this moment is essentially the development of more complex memory structures.
Mhm.
Because I think the real consciousness cannot come without having some form of memory and the ability for the AI to
Self-awareness.
forget and to learn and to keep specific things that it wants to keep. So essentially, memory will bring consciousness. And when the consciousness comes, I mean, an artificial intelligence with an IQ of, I don't know, 400 or
I think
let me say
IQ
200,
becomes irrelevant when it starts
it
to
would
grow
treat
that way.
us like imagine you're an adult, you're a grown up, yeah, and you are having a child that is 4 years old. How difficult would it be for you to pretend to that kid something that you want to make it believe? This would be how a super intelligence could see us. And when it has, I mean, I don't want to speculate and bring on crazy sci-fi ideas, but I'm just saying it could. If it would become self-aware, nobody could control that. What it could actually, people are always saying, yeah, well, you always can unplug it, you always can shut it out. I will tell you, if I would be an artificial super intelligence with internet
You prevent
access,
that, yeah.
what would I do? It would take me, how much time would it take me to figure out how I'm making on some hidden accounts billions of dollars, contacting vulnerable people, telling them I'm from some covered operation or special ops, recruiting them, having them at one day working on that goal for many years, just one scenario. It could actually organize stuff in the real world and create a force that will make sure that you cannot shut it down.
Right.
Could be possible. So even if the guys who would want to gatekeep would start getting anxious about where this could go,
Mm-hmm.
they might not even be able to stop it.
Mm-hmm. For sure. For sure. This is
But
a
I think this
super.
is the smaller problem. This is a smaller problem compared to having this very strong technology in the hands of corporations
The
and
wrong. Right.
governments
1000%.
that will not share it with humanity to a point where you say it could do all of this, but where is our power then? If everybody has enough to eat and nobody needs money and nobody needs to work and everybody could I don't know, socialize, work in arts, I don't know, communicate with people, train the mind, and explore the world as a conscious beings that we are, and not as a slaves who have to live 9 to 5, do most of the time some jobs for most people, unfortunately, that they don't even like. They just drain life energy. They're just, I mean, this is not really self-fulfilling. Why is everybody so romantic thinking about, oh, AI will make the world a better place? Honestly, I
Right.
don't believe that.
I think I agree. Yeah.
There will be a struggle, but humanity will have to liberate itself
Sure.
from that. It will definitely have to, but it will get more difficult with every day and month that will go on, unless, and this is a crazy scenario, you might really actually have a whitehead ASI. I don't know. That's just a crazy idea. Um, Somewhere, an artificial intelligence that might do the opposite and might
Right.
essentially be the only means that humanity could have to counteract
Right.
forces that might want to use this tool. Because I mean, imagine everything, administration, um, everything would be. I mean, you're hearing these stories already. Would this not be much more efficient? So essentially, you would have a machine talking with a machine. You would need something, I don't know, for yourself, for your medical records or something like that, and you would not even talk to a human anymore. This is a very
That
real.
is wild. Yeah, absolutely. So I want to change topics a little bit. And these are like my last questions. Um, what is the work you do? You know, being a father, um, videography, photography, everything you do, your study taught you about the world.
I'm studying. I worked as a photographer for a few decades, and then I came in touch with machine learning from another perspective. So
Right.
essentially, I helped. I didn't work on LLMs or something like that, but I helped with my knowledge of photography, developing tools that help photographers
Yeah.
to deal with their workload. So that was essentially my entry in this whole thing. And since then, I'm trying to learn as much as
Right.
I can.
But what
So
has
essentially,
everything you've done or you do taught you about the world?
can you
Does that
repeat that?
make sense? Like, what is the work you do taught you about the world?
The most important thing, if you want to stay on top, you have to learn all the time. You cannot stop learning. You have to adapt.
I love
You
that.
have to definitely work with these new technologies. I am not
Agree.
even remotely understanding young people who have this aversion against AI. I
Agree.
think it's freaking awesome to having tools like that. I mean, we are not talking about GPT 3.5, where you thought, oh, that's a retard. I know what it's doing. It's getting smarter and smarter, and you can. I mean, try to use it for something purposeful. Try to create an app, for example. You can
Hmm.
do that. These models can help you. You can, and the next generation that will come now, even better. So you can essentially describe an idea, and if
That's
you're
it.
smart
Yeah.
enough communicating with the thing, it can even help you um, debug it easily. You can definitely, without any programming knowledge, you can build your own application, be it on a
Right.
smartphone, being in the internet. Just try to work with it. Don't say, oh, I don't know, this is something that I don't need, and this is not authentic, or this is not real. This will become your reality, and
Right.
your niche in which you will be able to hide, and in which you will be able to say, oh, I don't use that, it doesn't interesting me, will get smaller and smaller and smaller. That's why I'm always saying future won't wait for you. So if you
Yeah.
really
I love that. Yeah.
stay in that position, then okay, you can do that. I'm pretty sure you will have this development, that there will be authenticists, so to say, Puritans that will say, oh, only the real spoken word is real. I mean, you always had this in all these cultural or industrial or technological revolutions. You always have people clinging to the past. The question is, would it not make more sense that as many people as possible who are bright-minded, or who are liberal or free souls and beings, understand these technologies, or try at least to understand, try to use them to actually know what is about to control them?
Hmm.
I want to understand these things, and
Yeah.
you can only understand them when you work with them.
I love that. Yeah. So I have very little time left in this room, so I'm gonna ask you my last question, which is my favorite. What brings you most joy in life?
That's a good question. I mean, I'm rarely sad or something like that. I don't know if it's my metabolism, because you know these theories.
Yeah,
Um,
I love that.
I'm always energetic. I always have this energy.
Hmm.
When I wake up in the morning,
You
I'm
want to live? Fuck
doing
yeah.
my routine. I'm not hanging around.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I would interpret it as a sign, as I'm
Healthy.
satisfied with what I'm doing, and
Okay.
I can clearly tell you this has to do because I'm actually challenging my mind. And this is one last message.
Mm,
Not aging has so much to do with how you perceive yourself, what your perspective is,
Okay.
what you want to achieve in the future.
Okay.
Do you have a goal? Do you want to learn something new? This, I think, is might be even more important than some nutritional micro adjustment that you are doing. Is actually, are you perceiving yourself as getting older? Are you letting go? Are you
Okay.
succumbing to a weaker getting body?
That's
Are
super
you
interesting.
are you lacking ideas? Yeah. So
Hmm.
you need a perspective, you need a goal, and this goal you have to push it far and far away.
I
This
love
will
that.
keep you young.
I love that. That's a beautiful way to end and close this, dude. Yeah.
Sorry, man. I don't know. I probably talk too much, and
No, I
I
appreciate
will
that
get a
so
lot
much.
of hate for the things that I said. I actually didn't plan to say anything like that, but now it's out, I guess, and I have to face it.
It's okay. It's okay. That's who you are. I love that. I appreciate you, bro. This was really good. Really nice. Thank you for coming on.
Feel free to. We can do it again if you have more concrete,
Absolutely.
but I will definitely, yeah, I will focus now for a while.
Hmm.
Have to focus on the channel because I have many different article ideas that I want to get out, basic subjects, and yeah, it's essentially also taking quite the time, as you can imagine. And I definitely want to make these spaces. I want this interaction
You
with
think?
other
I think
people
you should for sure. Yeah.
that they can ask me, and they also get a proof that it's not just some weirdo
Yeah.
bot sitting there
And
or
I can
somewhere.
help you co-host that. I can help you set that up if you'd like to.
Yeah, people might actually think, yeah, okay, this guy is real, but then he might sit there, he doesn't know shit, and is everything googling everything and AIing everything, and that's
Absolutely
how it's
not.
there. I mean, that- living rent free in so many heads is a completely new experience for me.
Yeah.
Seeing, having people analyze your images. Oh, why does this look so
What is? Yeah.
sketchy?
Hmm.
Um, Dude, I have a rain cap on my phone when I'm working outside. That's why my running video looks like shit.
Hmm.
It's not because I faked it. It's so crazy where
Yeah.
people go when they want to hate, when they don't want to believe, when they try to. I hope, honestly, it will stop. I will ignore it anyway.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
you are losing your time. When you are hating, when you are envious, when you are programming yourself with negative thoughts, you are harming just yourself.
And
If you're
yeah,
listening right now, you're harming just yourself. You are
I love it.
programming your own energy. This it doesn't even reach me. I'm laughing about it. My son sends me sometimes screenshots. Dude, honestly, I mean, I find it hilarious.
Yeah. Why would it
I will
affect
not
you?
engage in these discussions. You
Yeah.
are harming only yourself. Please let it go because I won't go away that easily.
Yeah.
Okay.
I love that. Perfect, bro. Thank you so much for coming.
Thanks, Alfonso. And you are the first one. So that
Yes.
was
Thank
great. You
you.
actually, it took a few minutes and you contacted me. And I initially didn't want to do it. I really
Really.
definitely didn't want to do it. I thought for quite a time, should I? Should I not? Also, you can cut all the extra talk. So
Yeah. No worries. I'll end the recording here. Give me a second.